All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foodservice Power Plant Network conversation. You have tuned into the right station. Typically, it's Jason on the line, but I feel very grateful that he actually reached out to me to see if I wouldn't mind doing one of these. And he asked me if I could do it maybe a week ago, but with his schedule. But anyway, it all worked out, and I definitely wanted to try to get someone that. Uh, Basically on the line similar to what we've done before in the past. And I think these things are great. They provide a lot of insight into our industry, a lot of connection, a lot of community, and I think you're going to love our next guest. So I think the interesting thing is, and by the way, a lot of you guys don't know who I am. I guess I should introduce myself. You can see the name there. My name is Glenn Lawless. I've been in the industry for about. I'm kind of a boomerang employee in the industry. I know they say you go out, you come back, but it's been about, I'd say about 8 years now, maybe 7 years in the industry. Um, about 7 years in the industry now, and I'd say I started in the financial industry, and it was 2009, and I was about to marry my wife. Unfortunately, with the financial crisis, I ended up getting let go, and someone provided me a great opportunity. Said, "Hey, there's this great company locally. Maybe we can get you an interview in there." And I started working for Metro. Started working for Metro a couple years in marketing, great stuff, and a very interesting story again. Maybe about 6 years later, I worked in the hospitality industry as an operator. It was great, and unfortunately, my organization got caught up. A little bit of a scandal. I'm not going to go into it right now, but unfortunately, a lot of management was let go. I mean, it was like a mafia hit movie. I mean, everyone was just probably not the best choice of words to use either. But unfortunately, I was let go, and I just had my wife, now wife, and my first newborn son decided to stay home, and I was let go. My wife just left her job a month ago. Before that, and out of the blue, literally the day I think because it was in the papers, I got an email from someone. I said, "Hey," I said, did this happen to you?" And I said, "Yeah." I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't involved in it, but yeah, with the fallout. And they said, "Well, why don't you come back to Metro? We're looking for some good people again. We got a great opportunities that are still lined up. We'd love to have you back." And here I am back at Metro, and welcome to the fold. And it's been great. I'm a regional, district sales manager there. I've been a couple roles in marketing, but I love it. It's great. And my favorite part of this is this part of it, the connection, the people. And I got to say that what Jason has done with the group, again, a good shout out to Jason. It's just amazing what seeing this group grow. But what I really like are these things. And so our guest today is John Nackley. We'll say senior now because obviously his son is actually in the role too, and we're actually really good friends, and that's sort of a connection there too, which we might dive into a little bit. But I'm going to bring John in now, and we're going to talk about his journey. We're going to talk about a couple things that basically make John tick. I know he has a lot of wealth of experience to talk about leadership, culture, his background, and I think you guys are all going to appreciate it. So, John, you there?
I'm here.
All right.
Thanks
John,
for having me.
welcome aboard. And again, thank you so much. Obviously, we work together, and I met you a little bit before I started working there, being friends with your son. But I got to say, it's been really great just being at Metro years ago and then coming back. And one of the things I have to say too is I have to preface this. This is not the Metro show, obviously. And I was telling John that it's not even the CEO show. It's basically a place where it just happened to be that way and turned out that way. But yeah, so started working with John years ago, and it's kind of interesting how things have changed and where we are now. And obviously, we're in a crazy situation, and just with the way the environment is. But before I go there, I just kind of wanted to kick it off and just ask you. So you've been at Metro at about I don't know, what 36 years now, maybe 30
36.
something. Wow.
36, yeah.
36 years. And I know you've been a CEO for 25 of them at least. Plus, can you tell me a little bit about your journey? Tell me a little bit about when even go back to when you knew that maybe leading was right for you. Let me be a bright spot, a moment when you knew that Metro was maybe the place or maybe, your position. So,
Well, prior to Metro, actually, I think you start noticing, as many of you that lead out there do, you start maybe seeing a tendency of liking to be involved at a higher level and maybe influence people. And maybe you also recognize that people have a tendency to be willing to work at a high level with you or quote unquote follow you, if you will. I
Hmm.
saw some
Hmm.
of that in high school. The first time probably was in captaining the baseball team and some of that. And then in college, there was a number of groups that I actually was president to and led the group on some travel tours and things like that. But hired out of school, I actually went into the computer industry and I wanted to be in the customer side of things. IBM had actually offered me a couple positions, but it was very analytical and they wanted me to stay inside. I knew very early that I wanted to be a person that would have more to do with customers and being outside. So
Hmm.
I was able to get, I was fortunate to be able to get with Burroughs Unisys in a sales and systems analysis or systems analyst job. And they put me on a fast track. I had had a very successful first year. And believe it or not, within 2 years, I think back now, quite candidly, at 23 years old, becoming a manager, I had no idea what the heck I was doing as I look back. And I remember telling my manager, who was very influential in developing me
Uh-huh.
and helping me along the way, I said, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And he said, we're going to put you on a fast track. You have the capability. And he said, you'll figure it out as you go. Well,
Uh-huh.
and that's what it took. So I took the only way I knew how is I would outwork everybody. And and fortunately, they kept moving me and giving me additional positions. But at the end of the day, I knew that I really enjoyed that. It gave me great feeling of reward. And I also noticed that I really enjoyed being able to hire some people and work with them and develop them. And then I left there because I was offered a vice presidency at a national company
Hmm.
at a very young age of 28, and I did that. And 6 years later, after we had a very successful run there, Dick Maslow, who was the owner, actually the inventor of the original product of the Metro product, his son was Dick Maslow, and Dick and I had spoken a few times. It didn't work out, and he finally recruited me to come to Metro. And I guess, as they say, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's 36 years, 36 and a half years. And I've been running the business since 1996, July of 96. So it's been a great run. But I think, you kind of know, as many of you do, you know pretty early if you kind of don't mind taking charge and don't mind having the responsibility that
Hmm.
goes with that. And
Hmm.
that's kind of the very high level story, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's great. Weren't you like a math major, like getting into the science?
I actually was. I had a lot of accounting, economics, and I actually was a math major. um, and I realized originally I was going to be a teacher,
Oh.
and I actually did student teaching, believe it or not, to test it out. And I realized that that probably wasn't going to be the way I wanted to go.
God.
And but it was really enjoyable, and I always loved math. I was good with numbers, which taught me a lot about reasoning. Math skills are very much about reasoning, and fortunately, uh, that and a lot of post grad business work and everything kind of prepares you over the years, and
Uh,
dealing with people like you, frankly, helps.
yeah. Jason on the line. He's here with us, by the way, guys. I forgot to tell you, he's behind the scenes. He's the guy in the chair, the man behind the man. He says teachers make great salespeople. There you go. There you go. So, that's funny you say that, John, because you know, I never, I never considered myself a math guy at all. I always considered myself an artsy person, or like in the design world. And similar to you, when you finally realize maybe like another role or leadership, I was trying to, I was going to go for art school. Actually, it's kind of funny. I was going to go for art, and then all of
Interesting.
a sudden, I did this like business camp. Actually, if you remember, John, about 8 years ago when I was here, about Pennsylvania for Enterprise Week, I was
Hmm.
there. I went to this camp,
Hmm.
and I thought I was going to be like the guy just drawing in the advertisements and making the pretty pictures. And I realized we start putting in budget numbers, and they had to like run this simulated business. You just start putting in numbers, and people weren't stepping up to the chalkboard to figure out what how much we wanted to produce. how much we wanted to spend on this and that. And then I was okay, well, maybe that's not the direction. So it's kind of funny how those roles find you, and where you had to lead. So awesome. Um, so being a CEO now, 25 plus years, what would you say is the most, I say, gratifying part, and conversely challenging to that? I'm sure there's a lot of challenges today, but what is it? What is it about leading this organization, and leading the
Well,
people?
you know, I think two things come to mind, top of mind. And this is not hokey in any way, but
Hmm.
I think, if you're a quality leader, one of the real gratifying things is when you're able to identify, hire uh, really good people, but
Hmm.
then be a part of their development and
Hmm.
see them grow within the organization, both personally and professionally, seeing them grow. That's very gratifying. But
Hmm.
beyond that, on the true business side of it, uh, times like this, the greater the challenge is the greater need for the leadership to step forward.
Hmm.
And you can see times like this as aggravating, frustrating, depressing at times, alcohol inducing at times, on certain weekends. But you can see it that way, or you can see it as a great opportunity to draw upon everything that you have inside, use your imagination, use your mind,
Hmm.
to think about how do you, and this again, not being hokey, but how do you see this as an opportunity perhaps to change some things that have to be changed, and a call to action for your people, and to draw upon your people perhaps more than you ever have before, but to quickly take action and put the strategies and whatnot in place. And that's one of the real gratifying things of the job, is you get to see the fruits of your ideas, and you see the benefits you bring to the organization. And part of that is seeing people develop and grow and all those other things. So times like this, and there have been numerous ones, and I'll mention it relative to the challenging part. um, Times like this, they're very gratifying. You work through them. You do what you have to do to what do they say? Make lemonade out of lemons, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so there's been the recessionary periods, which I've been through about three or four, and they are incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And working our way through those and bringing the organization through to be even stronger when you come out. Because one of the things we all learn is during the difficult times, you can put the right kinds of things in place that when it comes out, you're ready and prepared, and you drive it, and you're even stronger when you come out than when you went in. So that's
Hmm.
very gratifying. On the other hand, from a challenging perspective, I would say probably the most, at least for me personally, the
Hmm.
most challenging times are those where you have to really impact people's lives. During a few of the recessionary times, especially being part of a multinational corporation at the time,
Hmm.
of course, now we're part of the Ollie Group. Thank God, it's a
Hmm.
wonderful organization.
Hmm.
But when we were part of Emerson, it's a very fine multinational corporation. We were with them for 19 years, but multinational corporations really see things a lot differently, and you learn a lot about making really hard decisions. You have to close factories, you have to move things around, you have to take very aggressive moves with people. I honestly think that as I look back, they were some of my most challenging times, because I realized how many people's lives we were impacting at times. I had to
Hmm.
stand in front of people in our Georgia facility, in our Ohio facility, in our California facility, because we were doing what was right for
Hmm.
the long-term strategic impact and health of the company.
Hmm.
And there was a phrase I always use was the hurt of the many is you hurt the few for the good of the many, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm.
And those are the single hardest things you have to do, because that they're critically important for the long-term health and growth and welfare of all of the people and the business. On the other hand, you realize that you're significantly, as you said, you were impacted, Glenn,
Hmm.
significantly impacting the lives of other people. And to me, that is, even though it's somewhat out of your control to some degree, because you have the responsibility ultimately to make those kinds of decisions, but you realize that you're impacting people's lives, and that was always the most difficult thing for me. It
Yeah.
didn't prevent me from doing it, but it
Mhm.
was the most troubling, uh, heartfelt times that I've had to deal with.
Yeah, no. They say I've heard, and I can't imagine the decisions that you have to make. They say that, during times of trouble, right, that, you're, a wartime CEO, and, through times of bliss, you're, a peacetime or whatever. Being back here in 2009 in that recession, and going through that, I do recall, and, just coming back and seeing those challenges. I do think you can learn a lot from that. I was in a situation a while ago where, um, it's kind of interesting, but I was managing, a property, okay? And on that night, unfortunately, it was my first nights literally managing the entire property. There was a bad storm. I had to call everybody off. I had to literally time out everyone, any performers that were coming out, outside, all that stuff. I had to literally call it off. And there was a fire inside, which made like the vault doors shut down and separate. And it's kind of weird, but I'm kind of glad it happened, because after that, I felt like, okay, I learned a lot through it, like all those challenges. Anything, like I knew I knew it could only get better from there because of what happened. It's just being able to see that, and work through the difficulty and the challenge. So, um, definitely understand. But again, I remember being here in '09 too with you, and the challenges, and some of the decisions that have to be made. So I can't imagine, but very tough, very tough. I'm going to pull us out a little bit, a little back. So, I just, kind of understand you a little bit. I remember when I was trying to set this up with you, I said, hey, I said, you know, we're going to do this interview, we're going to come out here. It's going to be at, you said what time? I said it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern time, which, guys, by the way, and I said, I was joking with John, and I'm like, what is it, your bedtime? You go to bed? And he's like, well, I do wake up at 4 in the morning. And now here's what I say: I can't bust you because I have two young children, and when 8 o'clock rolls around Eastern time, and I finally can put them to bed, yeah, I'm on the couch maybe a couple seconds if I'm not doing something for work, obviously, if I'm not follow up on those last emails, of course. But so getting back to this, so you wake up at 4 a.m. So tell me about this. Like,
Not
is it
not not every day.
okay? Okay.
I'll be candid, lately, yeah, yeah.
Okay, got it. Got it.
It's typically probably a normal is 5:30 is like I really enjoy the mornings. I am
Yes.
an early riser. I think better in the morning. I'm
Yep.
clear. I get some time to myself, and I'm able to kinda ease into the day and
Hmm.
get some things done.
Hmm.
But, recently, I think what happens is when you're trouble in your mind,
Hmm.
you tend not to be quite as comfortable sleeping, and so, uh, I have been getting up without an alarm clock, just getting up early, and I give up, and I decide not to fight it, and I read a little bit, and then I just get started, but then by evening, I'm a 9:30, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But
No.
normally speaking, I like, 5:30 is a really, really good time because I can manage my morning a little bit, and then get out of the office a decent time to try to have a little personal time before I relax in the evening and get back at things a little bit.
So, I years ago I read this book. I'm a big nerd about this. Is why I asked this. I read this book. It was literally called Habits, or yeah, and it was literally the habits of, like, artists and poets, and thinkers, and all these people in the world. I mean, throughout time, Benjamin Franklin. They literally went through the early things that you've seen. Oh, we got Kevin Kochman on the line. Early mornings are the most productive time. And Kevin, I agree. I agree. I do not like this daylight savings times. I'll tell you why, because I actually do prefer kind of like beating, the sun a little bit kind of before everyone starts to get up. I kind of like that moment, and then seeing the sun come up. But you're right. I definitely agree. But back to that book, you know, it's interesting. Wait, who we got here? What do you do to keep your mind sharp, John? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to ask you this. What do you keep? And who asked that question? Who asked that? Let's see. I'm looking.
Facebook user.
Facebook user. Yes. I'm looking. Well, we'll get back to it. Um, but I read that about habits. So with these habits, I mean, obviously, it sounds like it's pretty disciplined with you. Do you have other disciplines like that? So obviously, do you have a set bedtime? Do you have a set, obviously it's troubling times in the morning you get up, but as far as, like, do you have any set disciplines? I will say this, I do know, I remember hearing stories about you getting up just to work out super early before anyone. Tell me about that. Is that still part of the routine?
Well, yeah, yeah, and it depends on time of the year, et cetera. Like summertime, I tend to play golf and I can walk and I get
Mhm,
more exercise that way. So I'm not as religious. I
mhm,
tend to cycle outside. We live on a lake, so
mhm,
I like to cycle and I change my routines that way. So it's walking while I golf and riding my bike around the lake and doing some things like that. Whereas this time of the year, I switch back inside and either work on TRX or elliptical and do more of the cardio type stuff.
mhm,
This time of the year. Yeah.
mhm. Got it. Um, yeah, I remember years ago someone telling me that you look like even when you travel, you make like a precedent to wake up at like 5 in the morning to work out. I remember that from years ago. I
Yeah.
forget who told
Just
me that.
depends.
I think it was, and I remember going, okay, but I remember also, and you guys know in this industry, especially when you're in some of these events, and it tends to get into the wee hours sometimes, and I'm like, how does he do it? How does he do it?
Uh,
So yeah, so this looks like I just saw, but yes, they want to know, John, how do you, Charlie Saruta, what do you
oh,
do to
really?
keep your mind sharp, John?
Well, I always used to be challenged by Charlie when I was working at NAFM. That was one way is, if you really want to stay sharp, make sure you have smart people around you that challenge you and make you think, right?
Hmm, hmm,
But, you know, look, you have to take care of yourself, right?
hmm.
Um, if you don't take care of yourself, that's not going to work. So a pretty healthy diet and again some exercise and give yourself as much as the work is great and you do it. You really have to have the R&R time and allow yourself to have some personal time and enjoy your family and your spouse and your friends and all those kinds of things. You got to do all of that stuff. But probably the number one way too is realize that you have to keep learning. You never ever stop because everything's changing all the time. And so reading a fair amount, staying up on the world issues and the business issues. And I think if you kind of do a combination of all those things, I know Charlie, who asked the question, is an avid runner. Uh, I think when you stay active like that, your mind stays active as well.
Oh, I got to
Mhm.
agree. I got to agree.
You, you, you just can't get stale.
So you just came to one of the next questions I was going to ask you. I'm a big believer in this, and I know you are. That readers are leaders, okay? And you can't be stagnant, and you can't be stale. Um, I think when I came here in 2009, we were in a meeting and it was definitely part of the time. And I heard you say a quote from a book, or I wasn't even a quote, but I knew you had something that it moved you. But it was from the book, How the Mighty Fall. And you read something about it and I was interested, but I asked you, John, what are some of your favorite books? Like, what do you recommend? So let me ask you that. Like, what book is one of your favorites that you've either gifted or you've handed out? Is there anything?
Yeah, that somewhat changes with time
Oh, of course, definitely.
because the issues change. I will say to this day, one of my favorite that I always recommend for anybody in business was a very, I think, insightful one, probably about 15, 20 years ago. Marketing Warfare by Reese and Trout was probably one of the most influential books that I had read. It was small, uh, and it was all about positioning and the battle for the top and all the things you run up against every single day. So a number one that's always been one of my favorite. My other new favorite was really by AJ Lafley, who was the CEO at Procter and
Mhm.
Gamble.
Yep. Yep.
And in fact, I told a lot of you guys to read it, Glenn. But it was Playing to Win. It is outstanding book because it's all
Thank you.
encompassing about determining number one. Everybody just likes to come in and do what everybody else is doing, and one of the things Glenn, we try not to do is Me Too type products and Me Too
Yeah.
markets and all that stuff. But but it really talks a lot about identifying where you want to play And then once you decide where you want to play, what markets, what segments, what regions, what categories, whatever it might be, what
Hmm.
product categories, then you talk about, what do you have to do to win? How will you win if you decide to play there? But sometimes where it fails, those two things are very important. But often where it fails is is the third part, which is what processes and what capabilities do you need as an organization in order to fulfill that, in order to win in what you've decided to play in. uh, Three basic concepts. He gives some great examples. Again, not a really, really long book, but
Hmm.
insightful. And I think it deals a lot with life in general, but it's an outstanding book. So and I always, as I would go on vacation, would look at reading a few business things and then a few uh, things that usually are historical in nature.
Okay.
And Bill O'Reilly's Killing series, I've read every single one of those. I just love them. It's an interesting approach to historical figures
Okay.
and what was going on at the times, and so that and Walter Isaacson is awesome with some of the
Okay.
books. But it gives me often it's about people, and I'm very interested in historical aspects of what was going on at the times and the people and their personas. So it gives me a little bit of both sides of the equation there.
Yeah. No, Walter Isaacson. He wrote the Ben Franklin autobiography, didn't he?
Franklin, he
Yeah, that
did
was good.
Einstein,
Yep. No, that's good stuff.
Jobs. Yeah, yeah, he did a great job on a lot of things.
So we got something here from Kenny Bizoski. The good thing all about mornings is it allows us to start over. If the night ended bad, you get a chance to change it for the better in the morning. If the night ended good, you get a chance to build it on the next morning. Love your story, John. So
Thank
thanks,
you.
Kenny. Appreciate it, pal. Um, so kind of again take another step back. So obviously reading is a big part, and I hear I was just going to ask you like what else outside of work are you passionate about? It sounds like I heard reading. I also heard, did I hear golf in there too? Like the
Oh,
golf
well,
as
you
well.
know that. I mean, probably my top passionate hobby, if you will, is golf. I would think I've tried to be a student of the game, um, and
I heard
all of
Huntsville
us.
just closed down, or
Yeah,
carts only. That's what.
just about. We walked yesterday. We walked
Okay,
18 yesterday, seven and
there
a
you
half
go.
miles. It was good exercise and a nice brisk day. It was
Yeah,
wonderful. But golf, it's the kind of thing where you never ever conquer.
yeah.
And I've always enjoyed things that, I can read about, I can learn, and I can continually try to get better because I've never ever met anyone who had figured it all out.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, as I said, golf, exercise, boating here on the lake.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the other thing is, I'm a passionate Yankee fan. So in the summertime, I get frustrated by watching the Yankees play.
No, it's good. And something that you mentioned, um, you know, it, golfing. It's a practice almost. And that's something that I have to remind myself too. That I feel like on a lot of occasions, it's either has to be all or nothing, perfect. But like you're right, with anything, it's a practice. You just got to keep on at it. There's no end. It's really just to keep you present, right? If you think about it, that's what it does. So, someone was asking this a little bit earlier, and I think it kind of goes into it. But you know, um, speaking of keeping present, when right, especially maybe now, things like this. What do you do when you find that you're kind of maybe getting off kilter or you're maybe unfocused? Is there anything you do to kind of ground yourself to bring yourself back? And could be personal, could be professional. But what do you do? What are some best practices that you recommend? Or I'm sorry, in your own account.
Um, well, probably if I'm having a difficult time focusing, whatever, I think the worst thing you can do is just try to work harder at it.
Hmm.
What I find is if I just back away
Hmm.
and do something totally unrelated, I'll
Hmm.
go out and I'll work in the yard. I'll just
Hmm.
do honeydew projects, and I
Hmm.
actually enjoy that a lot because it opens your mind, frees your mind, and takes away the block, and then whatever is there comes. So uh, uh, definitely try to change the pattern and do something totally unrelated. Frankly, exercise opens you up and kind of clears your mind a lot as well.
Hmm.
And I find sometimes if I'm concerned about something or down for some reason, uh,
Hmm.
call somebody fun. I've got some really, really great friends that make me laugh and that tend to be lighthearted people and good storytellers. And you just, talk to people that enjoy life and have fun, and it kind of breaks the pattern, and you realize it's not a woe is me. It's just one particular period of time, and get over it kind of thing and move on. So at least that's kind of the way I look at it. Try to
No,
change
that,
the pattern,
oh,
change the pattern a little bit.
no, that's good. Like a pattern interrupt. I think on my end, I feel like if I'm in a bad mood, I don't feel like sharing that bad mood with people. But I know that's the last thing you should do. People think of me as a lighthearted guy, probably. So I feel like when there is issues or trouble abroad, I'm like, But you're right. That's a reminder to myself. Hey, call someone. Call
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Another thing I definitely wanted to ask you is, you know, um, when kind of, obviously coming up through the ranks and become a leader at Metro, you've seen a lot of, different leaders come along, and different leadership teams. What do you think are, some of the most important qualities of those leaders?
Probably
Um,
the most asked question, right?
yeah.
I to me, uh, I think you have to have vision. I think a compelling vision for the expectations of your business and where you want to go is absolutely vital. I think you have to have passion and compassion. I think that's very, very important. The leaders that I've always felt were great had a sense of urgency about them, and um, not a lot of analysis paralysis and whatnot, but identify what has to be done and then get at it. And I do think you have to have a willingness to take risk, appropriate, well thought out, calculated risk. But I do think you have to be willing to take a risk. Um, and I do think you have to be a good communicator. You have to communicate up and down and throughout the organization. But to me, those were always the essence of the people that I have found to be the best leaders.
hmm Now, do you think that some of these things? Do you think leaders are born, or are they? Or can you develop? Are they made? I know there's a certain percentage that say, what is
You
it?
know, look, I think so many things come into that. Are you born to be anything? In my honest feeling, if you don't work at something, it's pretty darn hard to be really good at it. There's probably a lot of people who could have been leaders, but they didn't work at it. They weren't committed. They didn't have some of the commitment to some of the things that we just talked about. And I think to some degree, if someone has a high desire, I think it depends a lot on their personality, and then it comes down to chemistry and the structure of a given situation and organization. So, for example, um, if you were to take someone and put them in my position or a certain type of company in the chemistry, they may or may not, they may be a pretty good leader, but they may or may not succeed because of their style, their personality, that sort of thing.
hmm
And if you took another organization that might be very structured in the way it goes, the dynamics and style of that leader, if you put a very effervescent type leader that's high emotional and all that stuff
Yeah.
in an organization that maybe that's not the particular style that's necessary, then that person probably wouldn't do very good. So I think the chemistry and the style has a lot to do with it. And to that extent, there's been a lot of people who didn't classify themselves as leaders, but they're outstanding leaders. They're servant leaders.
Yes.
There's different types of leadership that it
hmm
calls for in different type situations. Now, that said, if you don't have some of the things that we just talked about, I think it's very hard to learn. I don't know that you can learn vision. I think it's something that you may have. I don't know that you can learn through emotional intelligence and whatnot, maybe to have some compassion and understanding, but it is a real difficult thing. Um, I think it's a very difficult thing to just learn out of the blue. You have to have an innate desire, and then even that, some people are natural leaders, but they don't take the time and energy to learn and commit themselves and do all the other things that you have to do. And so as a result, they're not all that great.
Got it. Got
Look
it.
at the amount of coaches that are fired every day. They're good people, and many of them are great leaders. They just can't really, really make it happen for that particular organization.
Yeah. No, agreed. So we had a couple of questions here. We said it was going to be a little interactive. First off, Eric Beach says, Glenn, so this means I'm calling you next time I'm struggling with something. Oh, and as you know, we work together a little closer these days. Anytime, Eric, for you, buddy. Charlie Saruta said it again. One of John's strengths is an incredible ability to shift the paradigm when things just aren't quite as good as they could be. Thanks a lot, Charlie. That's great. Um, Rob Connolly has a question. Hi, John and Glenn. Enjoying the conversations. Thumbs up emoji. Got a question for you, John. You have meant a lot to NAFM over the years. I'm curious if how your involvement in NAFM has impacted you personally and professionally.
Um, well, probably on both a personal and professional level. I don't know what has been as impactful for me in the industry as my involvement in NAFM. When I got involved initially, um, and let me preface it by saying some of my closest friends that I've ever had, I met them and worked with them at NAFM. So that's been a
Mhm,
very personal thing to me,
mhm, mhm,
uh, and I've been incredibly in awe of some of the wonderful people and their dedication to this fine organization that's a global leadership organization. So it has, in terms of professionally, it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of people that I may not have met, to learn a lot that I probably may not have been able to learn, to exposing myself to these things.
mhm,
And then the opportunity to then uh, uh, take a leadership as president and chairman at Emerson, as I know Rob Conley is, and he's done an incredibly fine job uh, making some really, really difficult decisions during difficult times. And then, we of course at the time had decided to become self-operated versus working with an outside organization during my time there. And I guess you could have viewed that as taking a risk to some degree, but
mhm.
again, having some of the vision um, to take that opportunity, take the chance, and it, it and to have a lot of people be willing to stand behind me at the time and make it successful. Um, so, on a personal and professional level, it really has meant a great deal to me. And one of the things, your most important responsibilities as a leader is to surround yourself with good people. And I don't say this only because Charlie is on the call, but probably the best decision I ever made at NAFM was hiring Deirdre and Charlie. And
Mhm.
and and truthfully, those people make you look really good. That it seems like you did a pretty good job as president and chairman. But NAFM is just an incredible place, and it allowed me to get close to the allied organizations and some of the people that I may or may not have had a chance to work really closely with. And as I said, many of those people are very dear friends today, and it's helped me personally and professionally, but it's really helped Metro as a business by getting our people involved, but also people seeing, what I was all about and learning what Metro was all about.
Got it. Um, so it sounds like obviously these people at NAFM especially, it sounds like you would definitely recommend becoming involved in NAFM somehow in any way, just because it sounds like it was very fruitful to you as far as the people that impacted you, and like you said, just the allied efforts, the being involved across the industry.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you is I guess it didn't really come up to me probably until I left high school and started thinking about this. But and as you know, John, your son has told me a little bit about how we have kind of similar. We grew up similarly in the fact that I necessarily didn't have a a dad growing up at a young age. I wanted to ask you this because for me, I didn't realize how important having just positive role models in your life at a certain age was how important it was. So I guess I'm coming back to that question in leadership. You know, growing up, were there any, either personally or professionally, any, mentors or role models that you had in your life, and maybe an important lesson that they might have shared with you along the way?
Well, to your point, many people may not know. My dad passed away when I was 6, and it left us in very humble means. I was 6. I had an older sister at 13, and then I had my brother was 4,
Hmm.
and my youngest sister was 4 months old, and my mom was left with us.
Wow.
And it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot about being self-reliant. Um, but the amount of commitment and dedication um, that she had for us, I couldn't have had a better role model in my entire life. So I was very fortunate. While it wasn't a male role model,
Hmm. Hmm.
she was a mom and a dad,
Hmm.
and an incredibly strong-willed woman that absolutely taught me unconditional love and about
Hmm.
respect for people, and how you get respect from people by giving it, uh, and how you just have to get out and work hard, and that's the way to make the best of it. I was fortunate to have been given, even though I didn't know my dad really well. I have a couple memories.
Hmm.
I was fortunate to know him through his friends. He had been captain of his football team, president of his class. Uh, his friends, um, his friends made sure that we knew him.
Hmm.
We knew about him and his style, and his brains and his character, and what he was about. And so it's funny that I might not have all the memories many people have, but my mother and his friends made sure that I totally understood everything about him. And I fundamentally believe it was the difference maker in my life
Wow.
of having to be, at a very young age, you go out and work and learn the value of a dollar, and don't expect anybody to give you anything. Just go earn it. And, um, you know, I was happy that, she was with us until 1998. And absolutely not any one other individual that was so important to me in my life, and
Wow.
in shaping my life. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. It looks like Jason just said, "Hey, wow, beautiful. Thank you for sharing about the strength and love of your mom." Deirdre Flynn says John revolutionized NAFM. He had a vision, he took the risk, and he transformed the organization to be a leading organization it is today. And his commitment to excellence for the organization is embedded in the organization forever. Wow, thank you, Deirdre. That's great. Jason again said NAFM has incredible leadership. Deirdre, Charlie, Rob, and the team are amazing leaders. So all great things coming through. So John, I don't want to take a whole lot more of your time. I do have a little surprise for you here in a little bit. I do want to ask you one more, maybe two more questions here. Um, so it sounds like you had some really great role models, and obviously you're doing the same thing now with, you have children, you have grandchildren now who I know. I mean, you have a huge family. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of people that desire to do something they love, right? But sometimes their passions might be at odds with the things that is considered a good career. What's some of the advice that you give your children now, that they have families of their own? What advice do you give them about professional direction, when they were trying to
Well,
pursue their career?
you know, and again, it's not cliche. I will say this, I mean it. I don't know that I've worked a day in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
Find something that doesn't feel like work, that you just dig into and absolutely enjoy, and it gives you energy and makes you want to learn every day. And what greater purpose can you have? I felt for my whole life. And I always felt sorry for people that were miserable at work, and to get up and spend all that time and energy with people that you may not like or may not appreciate or don't respect, and to be miserable that way. If you're miserable at work, it's awful difficult to be happy in your life. So my advice to my children was certainly find something that's fulfilling, that you're going to enjoy. I don't care what it is or how much money you make, but that's what'll make you a great person. Just a quick aside, 30 seconds. My daughter, Kristen, graduated from Susquehanna University and then moved out to New York, and she got into business, and was doing very, very well. And they wanted her to go into training and doing these other things. And she called me one day crying, and she said, I think I just don't want to disappoint you, but I don't know that I want to do this. And I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, I want to teach. I said, then go be the best teacher you can be. And she did. And she only needed a couple of courses, and she's got 2 masters in teaching and all this other stuff. And she's an incredible teacher, loves her life. And that's the same thing. Fortunately, I have 3 children, and I think all of them truly love what they're doing. But that's the key. Life's too short, right? I mean,
That's too short.
Why be miserable and do something you don't enjoy doing?
Oh, I like it. Thank you. Looks like we got some more feedback here. Charlie again. Your passion is evident, John, from Charlie Saruda. Thanks again, Charlie. All right. So one more thing for you. And then we have a little surprise. So in 50 years, okay, when the industry looks back on your career journey, and legacy, if you will. I mean, this is kind of funny, but John, someone has referred to you as the Dick Clark of the food service industry.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
They say it's definitely a compliment. Come on. What do you want them to say? What do you want them to say about you?
Probably that I made a difference for our business, for our industry, and for our people and our team, and maybe took them to the next level, and did it with respect, ethics, and character. And I guess if that could be said, I think that would mean a lot to me.
Well, John, the things you just said, I'm going to tell you this right now. And I might be a little biased because obviously I work at Metro, but I feel like all those things you just said, I think are 100% true already. So if that's any encouragement for the future, I think you're in the right path for what it's worth. All right. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see I'm going to ask anyone if they have any other questions that are online with us now. I've been trying to catch up with them as they've been coming through. Lots of great stuff. Really appreciate it. But then I'm going to switch over real quickly. We have a little surprise for you. As a tradition here in the FSPN network, we usually ask people to provide some words of encouragement to our guests. So I've reached out to a couple people and to share some words. And the funniest thing is some of these things I couldn't say, unfortunately. Your friends, but I'm going to read a couple here, and let's see here. I'm going to bring them up. All right. So the first one, John, is from our pals Lenny Denote and Peter too over at Mocha. He said, Lenny, I think Lenny wrote it coming from Peter and Lenny, but here you go. It says, John, he's always been there for us, tough but fair most of the time, listens to both sides most of the time, but we truly want to thank him for his advice and friendship over the many years. Our success has been greatly influenced by him. And lastly, if he needs any further free life lessons on top of the hill, just give us a call. He knows we've always been there for him. Blood amongst friends. Love, Lenny and Peter. So there you go. Yeah. Here's another one from your friend Mark Fuchs. Mark says, I have had the pleasure of knowing John for close to 30 or more years. From our first encounter, which did not go well in an elevator, we became incredible friends afterwards, and have enjoyed each other's company throughout our lives and career. We have gotten to know each other's families and been part of our children's celebrations together. John and I have had a great journey as we had shared lots of jokes, laughter, Yankees games, dinners, and of course, a few cocktails along the way. If you have ever been part of the John Nackley death shoulder grip, you would understand what I mean. I have been the beneficiary of a great friendship, and I've learned from one of the most knowledgeable people I know in the industry. For both of us in good times and bad, I feel we have always been there for each other. Thank you, John. When they created the definition of a true friend, they created with you in mind. So that's from your buddy Mark, and I'll say this: he had a couple for me that I couldn't share.
I don't doubt that. Yeah,
All right. Oh,
as I would for him. Yeah.
you can return the favor. All right.
Yeah.
I got. I think I got two more here. I got one from another one from Rick Ellingson. I know you guys go way back, so I've definitely reached out to him. Rick says, I kind of feel like I grew up in the business with John. We are similar in age, and he was navigating his way up the ladder at Metro when I was working my way out of a job at Bar Green Ellingson. I've always admired his deliberate passion for the business. He's very articulate and laser focused on his business. In at times an extremely dysfunctional marketplace, he is one of the more consistent players. He says that he says what he does, and he does what he says. I never knew what an uber sexual person was until I met John. He's a snappy dresser, which is no doubt what attracted me to him.
Oh.
Always giving back to the industry, and a guy well respected by all channel partners. There you go. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Here's another one from John Egner. I know you guys go back as well. Rick for the Laugh by Jason. So here's from John Egner. Back when I received Chop Cheever Award from FES, aka the Young Lion Award, I was unable to attend, and John accepted the award for me and had his picture taken with the editor and Mark Brenner, Eagle, as the award sponsor. They chopped off John's head and photoshopped my head on John's body. I will tell you, John is one of my most valued friend, confidant, and brother, not only in the industry, but in life as well. A man above all others, yet stands side by side with all. I love him like family. That's from John. Let's see here. Thank you, John. All right, we have one more here. This might be someone that you definitely know. I've spent a lot of time with here. I got your son to do one here. He offered someone. We got John Nackley Jr. John says, I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to work closely with my father over the last 6 years at Metro. He has always provided advice and mentorship for my sisters and I, as well as many colleagues, friends, and other acquaintances. Through this, he has shown me the importance of being available for people in your life while also working extremely hard for your own goals. I have watched him give his working life to this industry and is heavily invested personally in the success of its companies and people. Everyone he touches is lucky to have someone so dedicated to their success and that is willing to give his time, effort, and involvement to help make it happen. So that's from John. So that's all I have for you today, John. I didn't know. I didn't know if Jason. I know he's backstage, but I don't know if he had any other questions for you. I know it's. I think he said he had one last question. I'm not sure. Let's see here. Let me look. No, I think we're good. So Jason just wanted to say, John, thank you for sharing your story and insights with all of us. You are a true leader in vision and heart, and we are a better industry because of your leadership. And I definitely echo that. Thank you for all you've done. And we really appreciate you being with us on the network tonight for the Foodservice Power Plant Network. Thank you for your time, John.
Well, it's Thanksgiving, and my thanks to all of you for taking the time to listen and to give me a chance to tell my stories. I appreciate that. It was fun. I hope you appreciate it as well. Thank you very much. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
All right. Well, thank you, John, and thank you, everyone out there. We really appreciate it. We'll see you. Happy Thanksgiving.